Mayor counting down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4.
Good evening. This is the Brisbane City Council meeting of March 19th, calling the meeting to order at 6:36 p.m. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There's no remote attendance this evening. City Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Kern.
Here.
Councilmember Lenz.
Here.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Here.
And Mayor Mackett.
Here. Thank you. City Attorney, could you give us a report out of closed session on March 10th and March 19th, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. On March 10th, the City Council met to discuss anticipated, rather threatened litigation and provided staff direction. This evening, City Council met in closed session to discuss employment matters and also gave staff direction.
Thank you very much. Adoption of the agenda. I would like to pull consent calendar item D for corrections to the minutes, and those will be returned to another council meeting. Could I get a first and second to adopt the agenda as amended, please?
So moved?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. First item on our agenda, we have a presentation from Connect Bay Area Local Investment presentation. This is San Mateo County's Transportation District's Government and Community Affairs Officer, Michaela? You're
Yeah,
Michaela,
all right.
okay. Patrick?
Petrick.
Petrick, sorry. Thank you for correcting me. You're going to do a presentation on Connect Bay Area Local Investment Plan?
Yes, thank you.
Please go ahead. Thank you for joining us.
Do I need to press anything? It's working?
No, you're
Okay,
fine.
great.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, members of the public. Thank you so much for inviting us to present today. My name is Michaela Wright-Petrick. I'm a Government and Community Affairs Officer with the San Mateo County Transit District. Okay, I do need to, okay. Transit District, and I'm here to share an update with you. I'm going to give some information on a potential revenue measure, which could be on the November ballot. And if it makes it, we're sharing information for what it could mean for the county and how you and community members can engage in the process. Next, we do have a slide deck, yeah. Okay, so next slide. Here's an agenda. We have some information on the ballot measure as a whole and for specifics on San Mateo County. Next slide. Oh, go back one if you could. Oh. Okay. Well, the key issue that we're dealing with tonight is that transit agencies carry millions of people throughout the Bay Area, and they're facing major operational deficits. These agencies are sharing with the public this reality and a few reasons why that is, but that's really not why we're here tonight. You're going to be hearing from the other transit agencies about how, if the ballot measure, if successful, can help them stabilize and maintain their service levels. But the focus of my presentation today is the impact on San Mateo County. Next slide, please. I do think we're missing a couple. Okay. So I want to start off by giving a snapshot of Samtrans, who we are and who we serve. We provide bus and paratransit service here in San Mateo County, which is an essential service for people to get to work, medical appointments, school, and other destinations. You can see some bullet points here about our service, and our riders really depend on us. I want to emphasize that. 94% are low income, and 80% do not drive or choose to not own a car for a variety of reasons. Next slide. So right here, here's the key issue that we're dealing with tonight, which I mentioned before. Couple reasons for why the large transit operators are facing deficits are here on the screen. And like I said, you're going to be hearing from them separately on this issue. Next slide. So I want to give some background on the ballot measure. There is state legislation that passed last year called SB 63, the Connect Bay Area Act. It may reach the November ballot via Citizens Initiative, and there's a signature gathering effort underway right now. It would require 50% plus one of total votes in 5 counties to pass, and that's San Mateo County, Santa Clara, San Francisco, Alameda, and Contra Costa. If it makes the ballot, voters will decide if they approve a half-cent sales tax for 14 years and a full cent in San Francisco only. It would provide nearly $1 billion to transit in the Bay Area, and about 63% of the funding would go to preventing service cuts for Caltrain, BART, Muni, AC Transit, San Francisco Bay Ferry, and a couple of other smaller agencies. In San Mateo County, there would also be locally administered funds for local transportation improvements, and that's why we're here today.
Michaela, before you move on,
Yes.
so I'm just looking at this slide here, and it says 24% of San Mateo County sales tax to Caltrain, and 27% to BART. There's the 7% to Muni. So is this supposed to be within San Mateo County? The money that is collected in San Mateo County, 7% will go to Muni?
So if you look at the pie, it's of the 63%, that pink portion, the portion of the San Mateo County funds, 7% would go to Muni and 37% to Samtrans. And so that's how that part is divvied up. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know just that has been a bit of an issue with some folks, feeling that, hey, no problem with these other agencies that connect with San Mateo County, but this one is more of a San Francisco, unless there is a connection with Muni through San Mateo County.
So Samtrans does provide a lot of connections to Muni, and Muni does serve a significant number of San Mateo County residents, particularly in Daly City. And so I do have the ridership numbers here with me that I can share if I can find them. But there is a significant amount of Muni riders here in the county, and so that's how they decided to work on the percentages.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, next slide. So what does this all mean for San Mateo County? Samtrans would allocate approximately $50 million annually for 14 years. There are some limitations on the funds. They have to be used for public transit in some way, shape, or form. And we need your input and the community's input, and that's why we're here. The purpose is to help the Samtrans board determine how the $50 million would be invested in San Mateo County. Next slide. The good news is that even though the funds are limited to public transit, we have other ways of funding transportation items here in San Mateo County. We have 2 half-cent sales taxes that fund transportation improvements, Measure A and W, which you can see here. They are prescriptive, so voters have told us what to spend the money on. And Measure A expires in 2033. So the San Mateo County Transportation Authority may be asking voters to renew the sales tax, most likely around 2028. There may be transportation projects that don't fit the Connect Bay Area ballot measure that could be addressed later on through Measure A. Next slide. I also want to provide some context about Samtrans. We're really fortunate here in San Mateo County that our bus system is in a stronger financial position than some of the other operators that have deficits of $300 million, $75 million in Caltrain's case. But starting in fiscal year 28, we do start to see an inflection point where expenditures are outpacing revenues. We do project an operating deficit that averages about $30 million per year over the next decade. And like I said before, Samtrans provides an essential service, and so we're really keeping a close eye on this deficit. There are some cost-saving measures that we're doing right now, and we recognize that we need to protect this essential bus service for our customers. Next slide. So how is Samtrans determining how to spend the money that it would receive if the ballot measure qualifies and passes? We are putting together a local investment plan, and we have pre-existing strategic planning documents to help us. We have done a huge amount of outreach over the past several years to understand the community's priorities and our riders' priorities. Our board has also provided guidance, and we've already held 2 workshops for our stakeholder and agency advisory groups, and I want to thank your city manager and assistant city manager for participating in those. Our stakeholder group includes business, nonprofit, labor, special districts, and other community groups. And thank you for giving us the opportunity tonight to share this information with the City Council and members of the public. And we are also conducting a public survey to gather input. And at the end of the day, our board will decide the plan for this money if the ballot measure qualifies and passes. Next slide. Taking all of these inputs, we've identified 10 categories for funding consideration. And here are the various categories that we're surveying. We developed these based on our past planning projects, the stakeholder and agency feedback, as well as the current work that we're doing right now. We want to hear from people, and we want to hear from you on how to prioritize these various categories. Like I said, we have an online survey available in multiple languages, and we're leaving tariff surveys in paper form across the county. You all have one in front of you, and I have some outside as well. They have QR codes on them where people can take the survey, and also a tear-off portion where they can mail them back to us. Next slide. So we are doing this public engagement on a very short timeline. We basically have about 10 weeks for engagement. Throughout this process, we're listening and we're working to develop this local investment plan for our board to adopt. And there will be discussion at the Samtrans board meeting on May 6th. We invite you to participate and tune in. And our goal for board adoption is at the June meeting. We're doing this now so that residents have the information on how the funds would be invested in the county now if the ballot measure qualifies and passes. Next slide. So we need your help. The survey closes on April 30th, and we're really trying to get the information out. The sooner the better, so that it can help shape the conversations we're having over the next couple of weeks. We've given your staff a toolkit for social media, press, and newsletters. We ask you to amplify this in your social media and your city and constituent newsletters. I was told that the City of Brisbane Facebook account has already shared one of our Facebook posts, so thank you for that. And please take the survey yourself. Next slide. Okay, so that's it. We know we have a short presentation tonight, and we encourage you to get in touch with us. If you have any comments or questions, I'm happy to take them tonight or later on, and I just want to thank you again for having us.
Okay. Thank you, Michaela. Let's see if we have any questions here. Councilmember Davis?
No
Okay, Councilmember Lentz?
Yeah, I have one more. So, and I apologize if I wasn't paying attention when you were listing the agencies that would receive funding. But, one of our most robust public transit agencies is commute.org. So if the ballot measure did pass, is there money that's earmarked for commute.org?
That is an option. I haven't heard specific, earmarks to a specific agency, but we're taking that kind of feedback. If that's something that is important to you and your community, we'd certainly like to hear it. And, specifically what sort of funds that could go to, what's important, why commute.org is important to you. That is all information that we're taking in now. So pretty much everything's on the table as long as it falls into the categories that it has to be for public transit or public transit adjacent elements of projects. So as long as it's within that, it's on the table. So, we're taking that in.
Yeah, not to debate it, but I know that Muni is part of that 7%. Yeah, or commute.org, it didn't show any, but maybe I'm misunderstanding it. So.
Yeah, so the agencies identified for funding are the ones that have the largest operational deficits. And that was decided last year. There was enabling legislation that went through the state legislature.
Okay.
And the expenditure plan was decided for the measure overall was decided through that process. And a portion of that is coming back to San Mateo County for local transportation improvement. So what Samtrans is administering is that $50 million, that's our estimate of how much it would be, which is separate from the amount that Muni, Caltrain, BART, and those other agencies would get as outlined in the larger expenditure plan.
Okay, so then Samtrans could provide funding to commute.org if the measure passed. And then the board decides how they're going to earmark the money.
Yeah, that's a
Could,
possibility.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
The funds that are coming to Samtrans are called return to source funds. That was negotiated. Certain amount would come back to the county if we were supporting the whole big picture. Correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Can I make a
Councilmember Kern?
Thank you so much for the presentation tonight. In addition to responding to the survey, our residents, we use the 292 bus. That's the primary way to get downtown. We're a very small community here, as you know. That is our lifeline. Just responding to the survey is not going to be enough. How can we help you prioritize keeping the service at least at the minimum level that we've got today on that bus?
As part of this process, we're not making any decisions about specific routes, but I am noting that down, that 292 is really important. And I will say, you might be familiar, a couple years ago, we did something called Reimagine Samtrans, where we looked at the entire Samtrans network and made adjustments based on service. We are going to be starting another process like that in a couple of years, I think about 3. Which is when we'll be looking at specific routes, whether we need to make changes. And so that is definitely feedback that we're going to be looking for, through that process. But, if there are certain elements about the 292 that strike you as being really important, like such as making it faster, improving bus stops along that route, that's all kind of stuff that we're looking at as part of this process.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Can I add on to that? The big thing is that a lot of our high schoolers take that, right? That's the route. 290.
No,
No,
that's
what's the other
49,
one?
I
Oh, the
think.
49.
It's a
That only
separate
runs in the
bus.
morning and the
So
afternoon.
that
Yeah.
one is really critical for us because because of our topography and the way that school districts were established back when they thought San Bruno Mountain, the top would come off. Our high schools are very far away. So the city used to provide transit and became infeasible for us to do so. So a lot of our high schoolers rely on that bus, and several times it's been on the chopping block. So, looking at your list, expand access to transit for communities that are currently underserved. I would say Brisbane has to be on your radar for a community that's underserved by transit. And I think of all of the routes that we have, the commute.org shuttle is used very heavily. We've actually had to consolidate that route because of the funding deficits through them. And the cities are the ones that are shouldering that burden directly. So, because it's free. So we're the ones who are having to supplement that cost in the absence of businesses voluntarily contributing. So I think, for our bottom line, it's really important to make sure that we can continue to fund that shuttle. They anticipate that the deficit is going to continue to grow, which would mean that us and a lot of other communities are going to be having tough conversations about how much can we realistically put in. I think many residents would love to see that shuttle expand. Right now, it doesn't operate on the weekends, for example, and that really is one of our main connectors, because you can take it and you can get to Caltrain, you can take it, you can get to BART, and you can take it and of course transfer to all other, a bunch of other Samtrans and probably Muni lines through that. So I would hope that, that would be something that you would look at and try to prioritize. And then also, I think increased safety, cleanliness, and accessibility at bus stops. You hear often people are resistant to riding public transit because it's not a good experience because of a cleanliness issue. And enhance bus service to be more efficient, faster, and reliable. People often say that it takes them significantly longer, and so they're resistant to using public transit. So I think that, those two are things that could really enhance the amount of ridership and inspire more money flowing into the system so that it prevents us being in this situation repeatedly. I think those would have big impacts on ridership numbers, but that's just my 2 cents.
Councilmember O'Connell.
I had one more question, if I may.
Yeah, I'll go back to you.
I was still on.
Pardon me?
It was still my turn. It
Oh,
was still my
okay.
turn.
I'm sorry.
Jeremy, does staff have all the information they need in that toolkit to get this word out through all of our social media channels?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. That is all. Thank you, Michaela.
Any more?
I'm all good.
Okay. Councilmember O'Connell.
No, thank you.
And I have none. Thank you, Michaela,
Thank you.
and urging everyone, that survey, I'm sure we're going to put it in all of our city media, and it would be important to fill out that survey. Tell them what your priorities are. All right, we move on to oral communications, number 1.
This is on things that are not on the agenda, yeah?
Oral communications, number 1.
Comment about this presentation.
Yeah, and I wanted, look her, see, I had a question.
Go get her, go get her.
Well,
We'll make it work.
presentations
It's all right.
really aren't a time for question and
It just
answer.
as an explanation, normally we don't have public comment on presentations. So I'm sorry, I didn't anticipate that.
Yeah, no,
It's not a public hearing, and it was just a presentation.
I'm sorry. Well, the comment about 7% of a 0.5% of tax, and to be concerned about that from Councilmember Lentz, it affirms this lack of understanding of what public transit's all about. Public transit is about connections across communities. And if you think that residents of Brisbane don't use Muni, then you don't understand the transportation needs of people who live in Brisbane. I want you to understand that. People need to get around, and they need to get around to places that apparently you can't imagine. The comment about Samtrans service, it's an essential bus service, and the use of the word essential I find disturbing because it means we're just going to deliver the minimum. We're just going to give the minimum rather than a truly robust, and to refer to commute.org as robust is humorous, I have to say, because it is far from robust. It's a Band-Aid on the needs of the city of Brisbane. And we used to have a shuttle service that was more robust through Samtrans, and it got whittled away and whittled away. And another thing about commute.org that you need to understand is it's not funded in quite the same way as a transit agency is. It's consortium-based. You should know this. You are on the board. And the reason that we got disserviced is because Caltrain pulled out because of their financial condition. Everything is connected. And we need to stop looking at transportation in isolation, particularly when it comes to the county of San Mateo, because we just keep disservicing ourselves. I won't take any more time, and I will talk to you. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we move on to oral communications number 1. I must read the caveat. We welcome speakers providing public comment, but please be advised this is a limited public forum. It is therefore important for speakers to stay on topic, whether speaking to a particular agenda item or speaking during general public comment. On-topic matters are those that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. Speakers, whether during oral communications or on agenda items, will have 3 minutes. Following these rules helps ensure the City Council can get to all the items on the agenda, including hearing public comment on the items. If a speaker fails to follow these rules, they are disrupting the meeting and they will be warned. If a speaker continues to ignore the rules or is otherwise disruptive, their opportunity to speak will be ended, and they may be precluded from speaking on any other items tonight. That being said, is there a member of the public wishing to make a public comment? That must be on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. I see no one present, and City Clerk, we have no one online. Okay. Then, moving along, we go to new business, item H, fiscal year 2025-26 budget update. Staff report. I see Carolina.
Consent?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
consent.
sorry,
Yeah, okay.
consent. My mistake. All right, so we
make a
have, this little out of
I'll make a motion to approve items C, E, F, and G.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Okay, now we're back to new business.
There we go.
No, item D.
You pulled.
No, those were pulled.
I thought it was just pulled for a discussion to make a clarification.
No, there's going to be corrections made. It'll come back at another council meeting.
Okay.
Thank you, though. All right. I see we have Carolina awaiting. I assume you're doing item H, fiscal year budget update. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. We have slides that we'll be putting on your screen. Okay, good evening. So we'll be reviewing the progress of the fiscal year 25-26 budget. Projections are based off of activity through January activity, so just as a side note. But before we jump into the budget, moving to the next slide, the first page, we wanted to provide an update on the status of the audits and the annual financials. For fiscal year 23, we completed the ACFR, which is the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. We call it the ACFR, or Annual Financials, as most people consider it. Those were completed in December, and we have a Memorandum of Internal Controls, or what we call the MOIC, That is under review. We received that in February for, it's a document that accompanies the annual financials that talks about internal controls and any recommendations that the auditors provide based off of their testing. And so we're in review of that document in order to complete all of the various processes of the audit. For fiscal year '24, we're in the middle of testing at this time. So we're delivering various requested documents and required documents per our auditors. We're expecting a draft report of the financials by the end of this month. And then based off of those response and any updates and peer reviews, then we would be looking at completion by mid-April. If you'll recall, S&P, when they pulled our bond rating, they wanted to see not only fiscal year '23, but they also wanted to see a completed fiscal year '24 financials. So after those are available, then we will be on our way to submit our application to reinstate the bond ratings. Then going on to fiscal year '25, our auditors, which is Mays, will not start fiscal year '25 until '24 is completed. However, we've already begun initiating all the required documents, pushing them through so that as soon as '24 is at a point where they can start field work, whether it's interim testing or even final, that it'll be ready to go and accelerate the process. So we expect field work to be going on during the months of April and May. And with that target, we can look at a report available for completion by late June.
And if I can make a quick comment, for FY '23 and '24, the council requested that those come together, and we anticipate bringing both of those reports to the second meeting in April. Thank you.
Okay.
I do have a question, Madam Mayor. So, Carolina, when, if you were to give us a timeline, you went to the end of the line, which would be when S&P gives us a new rating. So when do you think that we could expect having a rating?
We could submit, I would say within April, we could submit.
But what's that process?
Right.
How long does it take?
So it could vary, but so the range that I was given, it could be like a couple weeks to a month, or 6 weeks to like a month or so. So I was given a range. That's what they were tying me to. I know we have some experience with some others that it was shorter, and I know that they overestimate just to give themselves some leeway. A lot of it depends on the activity that they're reviewing and, availability.
Okay.
So we're obviously want to accelerate that and have that as soon as possible. So that's why we're continue to move as quickly as possible to get all those, not only the draft, but a completed audit and audited financials ready for them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
May I ask a question on the same topic?
Sure.
Thank you. Carolina, I've got the website pulled up right now, and the last ACFR that we've got out there is 2022. When can the public expect to see updated ACFRs on our website?
Actually, the 23 was posted on there, so I apologize if the cover is 22, but I know 23 is there, and I don't know if it, during transition, if that changed when we moved to Civic Plus.
The last one out here is 22, so I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll follow up on that, because I know we did post it. As soon as we received it, we were very anxious to get that out.
Okay, so 23 you think is going to be out there within the next 24 hours?
Yes, I could follow up with that.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
24 will be,
As soon as we get through the process. So again, we're looking at April.
April. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
moving on to the budget. Are we okay? Great. So just a reminder of where we were when we implemented the budget or reviewed and the council approved it. It was prepared in the spring of 2025, approved in June of 2025. We were performing single-year budgets, and so we returned this time around for a 2-year budget cycle. So we were performing single-year budgets since 2020 due to COVID and other transitions in management. So in preparing the budget for 26, we wanted to make sure that we adjusted our revenues to exclude previous spikes for previous years, including most of the one-year spikes happen in sales taxes. And so we did experience several spikes related to like large artifact purchases, or if there are some corrections that are made between the tax agencies, and we wanted to make sure that we smoothed out as much as we could. And then the other area that we wanted to look at for more clarity was the permitting area for fees and charges. So we pulled out as far as anything that was coming through for large development permits, because that could skew your results. So with that, we were making our assumptions for revenues at a more conservative level. And then at the same time, on the expense side, we were including a 4.5 salary raise for the year of 2026. And that is the final year of the current MOUs. Moving on. So now that we're at a point where we feel comfortable that we can look at the trends from this current year, and we can say confidently that our revenues that we're expecting to see have exceeded our budget by 113%. So we're looking at $35,472,000. We're holding our expenditures to budget, again, to remain conservative, and we'll go through a few other areas of why we want to keep the budget at that time, at that level for expenditures, resulting in a surplus, expected surplus of at least $3 million, so $3,294,000. So if you recall that we were looking at a deficit of about $900,000, and so now we're expecting that that's going to flip, and we'll talk a little bit further why. So with that, with a projected beginning fund balance of $18.4 million, adding that surplus, we can project that we're going to end the year with a fund balance of $21.7 million. And that is a fund balance that includes some restrictions, so that just a reminder that that's not fully available. And then again, we'll go through some of the items that we set aside for the fund balance. So obviously, staff is excited that we can work towards finally flipping that deficit that we were projecting for several years, and want to go through some of the areas of what is driving these revenues, especially the increase in revenues. Moving on to the next slide. So we're just going through the different items from the major components of the revenue portion, and you'll see that basically they're all increasing. These are the major components. So property taxes are going up. Sales taxes, as the most significant, has gone up. TOT, we're seeing a steady, small growth, but steady. Business licenses continue to grow. And then our fees and charges, regardless of the large developments, not necessarily being included, but we are still seeing a strong increase in our fees and charges. So I wanted to talk a little bit based off of some of the information that you received in the staff report regarding some of these categories. So for property taxes, we're continuing to see the impact of the developments from Sierra Point, and then also redevelopment pass-throughs that come through to us from the county. We're trying to time, or we've been in contact with the county to try to determine when we can see an impact from a large sale that happened during the year of the CalSTRS properties. The county has indicated that there's a delay in the valuations, and so they don't think that we're going to see the full impact of that sale probably for at least another cycle and a half or even 2 cycles. But at least we know that going forward that we can expect a positive impact from that. But in the meantime, we're already seeing the additional revenues from the developments that have already completed. Moving on to sales tax, as I mentioned, that's the strongest increase, and what we're seeing is truly we're beyond one spike type of income. We're seeing a steady growth in the retail area, and the business to business has been growing. And so that has steadily increased enough for us to feel confident that from what we're projecting this year alone in sales taxes, the Bradley and Burns component is almost 11 million. We've already received 2 years of the use tax, which is slightly over 1.5 million. It's still short of what we projected initially, but it's still growing. Again, the TOT, I was actually speaking to one of the hotels just to try to get a feel for some of the Super Bowl impact. We haven't seen it in the numbers come through yet, but just talking to at least one of them, they did see a little bit of spike. But even without that information, or without those Super Bowl numbers, we've already seen a steady growth in the TOT compared to prior years. So we're definitely not, pre-COVID levels, but it's now we're above the 2 million when we've been riding around 1.5 to 1.7 for several years. So we're finally expecting to hit over 2 million this year. The business license tax, this is an area that we'll be bringing back later this year for some adjustments to the program. But in the meantime, we're seeing an active business community paying their taxes, and with the partnership of HDL, we've been able to not only do the annual renewals, but we've already started some of the collection process as well, and discovery. So that's been helping contribute to our business license component. And then fees and service, the building and planning, we always budget flat, and we're seeing some decreases, but for recreation, it's already trending above target. So to date, it's a slight increase, but yet an increase for the bottom line. Next slide. So we wanted to highlight the sales tax revenue, starting with COVID year, which for the size of our city, because we didn't have retail and malls, we actually benefited from the other agencies having those sales taxes reduced, because we got a bigger chunk of the county pool. So for 2020 and 21, you'll see the dark bars, which is actual sales tax. That is why we saw those increases. Starting in 2022, we had the reduction when the Real left, and then the county pool went back down to a normal level. So in 2020 and 21, we were actually about 5% of county pool, where we normally ride around 2%. So for 2022 going forward, we were into 25, we're back around that 2% of the county pool. But now with the increase in retail, for 2026, we're seeing that that's growing to between 3.5 to 4, and that's steadily growing. We have to keep an eye. There is some potential legal or initiatives out there that may want to affect that, but we're keeping our eye on that. However, even despite that, we have enough within our city that's enough within the city that's not the major component of the county pool. We're in talks with our sales tax analyst, which is Avenue, now they're Nuvo, to help us identify, to track that legislation, or proposed legislation, I should say, and then, and also to help us calculate or analyze how much it's a possible impact to us if it were to go through. So just wanted to, there are the 1-year spikes. 23, there was, and 25, we saw some art sales impacting those numbers, but 2026 is primarily the retail and the business to business. Moving on to the next. For 25, 26 expenses, as we said, we're not recommending any budget adjustment. There were some areas when we look at where we are to date, we're pretty much on target for the general fund as a whole. We have several departments that experience some salary savings, primarily some of the retirees, whether it's timing on whether they were planned or not, but just the timing of some of the hiring and the backfill. And what we're trying to do is use some of those savings to pay for some temporary staffing so that it will have a minimal impact to the operations with losing some of these positions as we go through the recruiting process. And then it also forces us to look at the projects that we have on the timeline. Do we have enough resources to actually roll these projects out? And sometimes you have to make decision to pause a little bit, and by doing that, it will include some savings in the department operation. So those are some of the areas that we're seeing some of savings. But again, we don't want to make any adjustments at this time. And at the end, we'll talk about what other areas we have to consider for the expenses. Moving on to the next slide. Just historically, we budget conservatively. We make our best effort. We don't just do it intentional and then to have a surplus at the end. We really do try to make some solid assumptions whenever we have our revenues and expense budgets presented. However, we've seen some spikes for such, and there was no way for us to anticipate the revenue that we were seeing in sales tax. So that's 2026 projection is where you're going to see that increase. So just historically, just that you can compare the solid bars are the revenue that's actual, and the graded bars are the expenditures. So for the last couple of years, you saw the deficits that were, last 3 years deficits that were budgeted compared to the lines. So lines are budgeted for expenses and revenues. Moving on. So for the fund balance, we do have policy requirements. So even though we're expecting 21.7 million, we have to set aside reserves based off of our own policy, which we have 6 million already for recession and unanticipated events set aside, and then the annual fluctuation portion of the budget reserve is based off of 5% of budgeted revenue and 5% of budgeted expense. So all combined, that was 9.2 million. And then with annual or additional restrictions, rather, if there are any loans or any other multi-year contracts that we have to restrict the fund balance, that's going to be part of that 4.2 million. And then leaving us with the total available re-projected at 8.3 million. Moving to the next, just wanted to give a highlight of outstanding debt that we do have. And we're just going to see the drop-off in starting, the biggest drop-off is after 2035. We see the library go away. By then, the City Hall refi has gone away. And so granted, unless we were to obtain more debt, this is where, how much we would be seeing through the year of 2043. And then finally, the last, the next couple of slides is just talking about, okay, we have, now that we've turned around the deficit to a surplus, we do have to consider what's coming up, what's around the corner for us. And so we will be coming back to review the 26-27 budget and see if there are any adjustments that we propose, and that's going to be sometime either in June or if we want to come back when after the break. But in any event, we do need to make some adjustments considering the changes in the revenue portion and then some of the other projects that we have to consider for the expense side. Mainly, we're renegotiating contracts right now for the employee staff. They currently expire at the end of June of this fiscal year. So whether we enter into 3 to 4 year, we do need to consider what those costs are going to be to the city over that term. And then we have several studies going on right now to enhance our revenues. The master fee study is pretty much on its way to be coming to the council pretty soon. Within April is what we've targeted. And then, or early May, depending on the business license fee study, which needs to come to the council actually higher priority, because if we want to get it on the ballot for November, that has to go before you, and then also there's a public hearing that also has to take place. So we do have those two that we're anticipating already from what we're seeing in initial reviews of the studies, that's going to just be additional revenue for the city. Obviously, we're the national news and globally what's going on, there are policies that are going to impact us from an economic environment, whether it's rates, primarily costs with how it affects oil and gas prices, and that tends to immediately see impact on a lot of our costs for whether it's public works, just, you know, not just fueling our fleet, but there are other costs at any type of projects that we want to enter into. There's going to be an additional charges tend to flow through pretty rapidly. So we have to consider that. Moving to the next page, unfunded liabilities. Again, we're dependent on how CalPERS prices, how the pricing for their rates affect us. And so right now, the assumption is around 6%. And so depending on how the market goes, either if the market is lower than 6, then we have to cover that gap. If it's higher, then we have it decreases the liability. But it is something that we have to keep our eye on as the retirement portfolio grows. And then again, the revenues from sales tax and property taxes, we'll have a better idea, I think, by the end of October, when we can see some of the property tax impact, and then we'll just have some more trend information for the sales tax. And then finally, we do need to make sure that as we are seeing these additional revenues, that we consider reestablishing the reserves that we had set aside for different projects like our facilities, maintenance, fleet replacement, and even technology. So some of the funds we've had in place before, where we had contributions that had to be placed on hold because of the deficits. So now we can seriously start and reset the city and take a good look on what it's going to take to set ourselves for a more solid foundation for the next 10, 15, 20 years and beyond. With that, I want to, the next slide, I want to say a big thank you to the finance team. The California State Financial Officers Association set aside this year finally highlight the Government Finance Professionals Week. And so this is the first year they're going to have it. It's actually next week. And I really want to say thank you to the staff of our team. Does a lot for the city. And this is going to be a great way to highlight what we do in not only for our internal customers or for the staff and department, but also we have an impact to the rest of the city and the residents and the business community. So we hope that you'll join us when we do have a few things that we have planned for next week. I want to shout out to each person individually. Lori Pierce is our accounting systems analyst, and she's actually stepping up right now in a position because we have a vacancy. So she's been really stepping up as my right-hand person. Lynn J. has been, she's a management analyst, but has been in charge of payroll for many years. And so getting everyone paid is very important, and we appreciate that. We appreciate her. Jisoo Kim just started in December, and she's an accounting assistant, and she's working in the accounts payable, and she's already making a lot of great contributions and helping us facilitate and automate a few things here and there, and analyzing our processes. So we're very excited to have her. Lihia Ferreira has been our utility billing specialist since 2019. And so she's has the biggest interaction with our residents and our customers, business community as well. So we're very happy when we receive, we received several positive comments about her, and so we're very excited. Carol Shivo, we actually stole from the city council department, and so she's our admin assistant, and so she's very helpful with her knowledge from another department of the city. She's been very instrumental in accelerating a lot of our audit work, between some of the research that we're doing for a lot of old historical documents that we're looking at as we're taking this time to really look at a lot of the older accounts, older funds, and just pulling things together, how we can clean up. Grace Campbell came back to us. She's working part-time for us and primarily in the payroll function, but she's also helping with the business licenses. So we're excited to have her back. Financial services manager, unfortunately, we have an open position when Tran Nguyen left at the end of November. So we're in an active recruitment, and that should close at the end of this month. So we hope to have that filled by the end of April. And then finally, James Stevenson, who is our IT administrator, and he falls under finance, so we don't want to forget him. So if you get a chance, I really would hope that you get a chance to say hello to our staff and join me in thanking them for the work that they do for us. And other than that, if you have any questions.
Thank you, Carolina. That was really comprehensive. I appreciate that.
Sorry if it's
That was a
too
lot
long.
of work to put together. All right, are you ready to stand for some questions?
Here we go.
Take a deep breath. All right, let us start with Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you for providing this information to us. It was complete enough that I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
We'll go to the other end of the dais. Councilmember Kern.
Fantastic report, Carolina. Shout out to the whole staff. I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay. Councilmember Lentz.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, thank you, Carolina. So just getting some clarification. So when you're talking about artifacts disrupting or like having an impact on the sales tax, that's basically the stuff that was sold at Real, correct?
Not so much that we order, but like when they installed art at the Sierra Point and some of those buildings, or apparently there are some, like, if there's an art show or some sales that are happening in those areas, if there's sales of artwork.
Oh,
We're
so
yeah.
that's still going on in,
Yeah.
I
Within
did
the
not-
city.
You should
That was
know.
my question. No, that was literally gonna be my question. It's
Sorry,
like,
I just
you
took it
mentioned
from
art
you.
sales, and I'm wondering,
Yeah, where in the heck is that
where are
coming
these
from?
art sales happening? Because they have to be significant enough
Yeah.
to be coming to your attention to generate enough sales tax.
So the big installment like that would definitely be an example.
But I don't understand. Like public art? Are you talking about?
No. Like,
So if
Private
they,
art,
so
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
so if like a biotech company is purchasing art for their lobby or something, that's what you're.
part of that, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And then there is a company, it's an art dealership, that there's some revenue coming from that, and we're seeing the spikes, because it's
We
obviously.
gotta find out who
Yeah,
that
you
is.
better.
We have the.
Make sure they don't leave.
Yeah, we need to know who they are.
So-
All right. Under fees and service charges, so, in the past, we've had some large-scale development, and they've generated revenue for the city, but we haven't, since the Phase 3 development, things have been kind of quiet. So, but yet our income has been rising.
Steady.
It's been steady,
Yeah.
yeah. So, so I mean, like, is that something that you typically don't really include is development in your projections? You just, if it comes in, it comes in, and if, and then you just make adjustments at the end of the year type thing.
Right, I mean, we do have to look at the trends and what did drive some of the increases, just to kind of make sure if they're one time, versus a steady with, like what happened during COVID, where all of a sudden everybody was working on their homes.
There was
We're
a
not
lot of that,
talking big
yeah.
developers, we're just talking about regular homeowners. So that type of activity is going to be your study.
Got it,
And then, obviously it's impacted by the economy, if you're going to get a loan to fix your house or not. So we have to consider that when we scaled back, because we did see, in general, the economy where folks weren't getting those loans to do remodels and things of that nature. So unless you have the cash on hand to do it, right, you're not going to be pulling those permits.
So just kind of curious then, kind of thinking of that, that type of development, how has the sales tax generation from Golden State Lumber been? Has it been steady, or are you seeing, an increase, or is it starting to go down a little bit?
It's still been steady. And it's still top 5 for sure. Yeah.
Sure. But they're a good indicator on the economy.
Right.
If people are, if businesses, right, and homeowners are
Using their.
using them to make these investments in development, whether it's a remodel or building a home or a
Building development.
building. Yeah. Okay. So you had mentioned the purchase of the Calsters properties by Prologis, and that the county, I guess it's kind of a slow process. I would assume, though, that as soon as Prologis bought the property, the assessment went into effect.
That's the assessment is where there's a delay. What you actually see more immediate is like there's like a transfer tax type of
Okay.
that component. But the assessment for it to be added to the roll, that's going to be the delay.
There'll be a supplemental bill, correct, for the property tax?
Well, supplemental, I believe, I want to say it was for your own property. But
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, like, you
Yeah.
buy a home and, maybe
That's your
the
own,
person
that's
was, yeah, right, then it gets
reassessed. Yeah.
reassessed. I mean, I would assume that these properties would be reassessed.
Right, and that's where they're saying that the assessment process, that's the part that's going to be delayed.
Better tell them to get
Because-
on it, right? I mean,
Well, we want it faster, of course.
yeah, I think, the school districts want it too. Oh, okay.
But there's a delay in the county as a whole, so that's where they're kind of giving us a pause of just to not
Okay.
expect it right away.
Then on the TOT, right? So you said that that's kind of,
Yeah,
remaining
you're-
steady, right? So, we have these two types of hotels. One's a regular hotel, the other one's an extended stay. And so, but the extended stay one also you can rent or have a room for the evening. It doesn't have to be an extended stay.
Correct.
And then if people stay at that hotel for less than 30 days, is it? Then they pay the regular TOT? Okay, so how has that particular hotel been with paying regular TOT?
It's actually been consistent. So, I mean, I know before we had.
We were concerned, right?
We
Never
did
gonna-
have the concern because we were getting TOT on any stay that they had.
Exactly.
It's dropped then, but we've picked up on the flip side with the business license.
Exactly, right.
Hotel,
That's what
the
we covered.
hotel business license, which is a separate line. It's not in the TOT. But regardless,
Yes,
it's
regardless.
still been steady.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, so then, looking at this particular sheet that you have in the packet, this is the one that's the attachment 1 in the general fund. And so, I hate to be a broken record, but I'll just say it anyways. Getting down to that, that last line, right? So that available fund balance. So just, if you wouldn't mind just explaining, what that is and what, are there any requirements or restrictions to that last line?
Yes. So, well, we start carving out the restrictions. So that.
I mean, that's what's left over.
That's what's left over.
Afterwards. So there's no restrictions on this
That
last
component.
line.
When you're looking at what you have available to use, that's the number, that level is what you're looking at.
Got it. And the council has the discretion to use that for anything that it
As we go
Soul
through the
desires.
budgeting process or your other decisions that you make.
Okay, so then, looking at 22, 23, it was 900,000 or so, 990 or whatever. And then it kind of doubled the next year. Then it doubled again. And then now we're looking at, and maybe, this,
Not quite
this
double,
type
but
is kind
yeah.
of, not quite,
Right,
but,
right.
fairly close. But then,
Yes.
then the next year, doubled.
Well, depending on then what other additional restrictions we may impose, like I was talking about when we reevaluate our reserves. Is there going to be an additional restriction that we want to put
Yeah.
on ourselves?
Exactly. I'm just saying, so then, and then the fiscal year 25, 26, it's at 8.3 million. Okay, so kind of looks like it doubled again.
Right.
Right, yeah, but of course, I mean, the council has, this is a particular fund balance that we all are gonna have to figure out, how we utilize this money.
It is.
I mean, of course, there's a lot of things that we could, right? We could improve or rebolster or add to our reserves, and you mentioned the other pots that we could put some money into in regards to reserves. We have some capital improvements that we've been delaying, like the old library. People have been asking us about that. Potentially a master plan for.
Is there a question in
So
there?
what,
I'm waiting
so what
for
I'm-
the question.
So what I'm getting at, right? So I'm just kind of putting it out there is because we're going to have this goal setting workshop on Saturday, right? And so to set goals, they cost money. And so having an understanding of what this means, right? Because all I see is it keeps growing, and we're not like utilizing taxpayer money for something. I just see a pot that keeps growing here. So I'm hoping that when we do have our workshop on Saturday, that we are kind of like, okay, well, how, here are these council goals. How could we potentially use these funds for those goals? Just, in general.
Yeah, through the chair, if I may, I think the opportunity that the council has with this revised figure is a level set opportunity, is an opportunity for the council to collectively have a series of high-level strategic conversations associated with what's the most appropriate way to utilize these funds. And I think you articulate very well the breadth of the types of things that could be available to the council. It's clearly others. And the caution that I would offer the collective council is take the opportunity to have those discussions and bring in as many people as possible as part of that, and come up with a master plan, if you will, on how this is all going to fit together. So tonight we're bringing forward the overtime conversation. We had the grant conversation. There's a few others that we want to bring as we're calling primers, essentially. Again, level setting opportunities. Council has access to the same information and then can have those discussions. We're proud of the fact that the council can have those discussions in a way now that they couldn't a couple of years ago. We certainly would not advocate spending all the money. We would advocate having a very, very thoughtful plan associated with how we're going to use the money moving forward. I see the figure myself, and it's enticing. I understand that completely. So I'm excited that Councilmember Lentz, you're articulating what the staff had intended to do over a period of time in the next fiscal years. Let's talk this out. Let's figure out what we're going to do with it.
Thank you for that. That's it, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Davis?
No, my question was asked.
Okay. I would like to ask you about the assessment, Genentech, and the monies that come from the county, and how you're handling that in terms of forecasting for the next couple of years. Because they're not done with that.
They're not done. So we do need some more information on what the next, the next litigation amounts are looking like. It's not adjusted for future years, but it is in here that we were actually pretty fortunate that we weren't impacted like some of the other surrounding cities.
Right.
So even with that, and we did consider that as part of our property tax reduction.
Okay.
And it's still seeing an increase.
So we're going to be in a wait and see, and yet we're going to have to somehow.
What we could do is apply some kind of factor in there. I think that would be the best. I don't want to say the best. I just want to say we want to be prudent in future years and consider that it is a possibility that it can come back.
Because there's a lot of years in there still they're looking at,
Yes.
and nobody knows when it's coming.
No.
And, okay,
And
thank you for
We can't
that.
rely that we're going to be as fortunate the next round.
Exactly, exactly. All right. That's the only question I had for you. Thank you for such a comprehensive report.
If I can make a little bit of a joke, but also just share some information the chief was sharing with me. One area that we may need a little money, we just had a solo car accident up at Mission Blue. The person's okay, but they ran into the building.
Oh.
So we're getting more information there. So we'll need some of
That
that.
building,
The main building, it looks like they hit the front,
the Mission Blue Center,
correct.
Oh, boy.
they hit the front of, what front?
They, looks like distracted driving near the entrance, hit one of the columns.
Came over,
I'll show you the photos after the meeting.
You said just, when was just?
20 minutes, half hour.
Oh, okay.
Looks like
Just.
they came off of Mission Blue, went down the stair, near the stairs, and took the railing with them and went right into one of the pillars there, one of the poles there.
so what happens in that? Is that like they're liable, insurance?
I'm sorry, I did not mean to send us on a tangent. My apologies.
So it'll be through the insurances, the
Yeah,
insurance will figure it out.
can't.
you're right, Jeremy. I think they were distracted.
I think so.
It's going to depend on how good a policy they have.
Yeah. Okay, do
It's not going to cover the damages.
do we have any public members of the public wishing to comment? A while ago, there was someone with a hand raised.
Not at this time, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Council discussion. Councilmember O'Connell, we'll start with you again.
I just want to say that I think that, most of this rosy outlook is due to our sales tax. It's a 3.3 million upgrade from where we thought we were going to be. And that's just about the difference between our deficit and what the projection is. And that can change very quickly. Companies can leave very quickly, and the rules surrounding how property or how sales tax is dispersed can change very quickly. So I just don't want this to look overly rosy. But again, we will have that discussion in our priority goal setting probably this Saturday. But that's my only comments.
Okay. Going to the right, Councilmember Davis.
I mean, great to see a positive projection, right? It's taken a lot of work to get here, and it's really nice to, see that we're going to be hopefully having this much at the end of our budget year. And there's not much more to say beyond that.
Okay. Councilmember Lentz.
When I look at our budget, I see years of working together as a team and really thinking about it, council and staff, and that's why we're in the position that we're in today. Obviously, we got a spike in sales tax, which really pushed us up in a significant way. But when you look at over the years, we've been very prudent, and I don't see us changing that at all, but it does give us some openings, I think, to address some of the things that we've been pushing off. We've told folks, hey, we don't have the money, but now we do have some. And so I hope that, we have a great conversation on Saturday and perhaps utilize some of these additional revenues to put forth some great things that the public will enjoy.
Okay. Councilmember Kern.
Thank you so much. Fantastic presentation. It's not every council meeting that we get a revenue windfall. So thank you for the good news tonight. On that same token, I think that we need to practice some extremely prudent expense management on the go forward and have a hard look at our enterprise funds. The shape of some of those funds are in need. I know that Councilmember Lentz mentioned some of our deferred maintenance on our facilities, and I hope that we're going to take some serious consideration and time in looking at all of that. So great presentation. Thank you for the good news. Big smiles all the way around.
Okay. So before everyone gets giddy about the change in the fund balance increasing, I have to remind everyone that what things cost 4 years ago, in some cases, have doubled, including our janitorial, gasoline, energy costs, which are projected to increase dramatically in the next 2 years. A lot of economic uncertainties. Every time we've looked at construction costs, they're all going up. Materials, tariffs, what lumber cost, what sheetrock cost, and the labor cost as well, because people want their services to be adjusted so they don't fall behind in this economic status. So I think before we get giddy about spending money, I think we need to look at the fact that we struggled through COVID. We had to try to maintain what we had. We've got years of defrayed maintenance on facilities. We have, once we fix things, we have a habit of not taking care of them, and we need to start budgeting for that. We're investing in our employees, and that's going to cost us money. We want to retain them. We haven't looked at the reserve levels for a while, and due to the fact that everything costs more, I think maybe we need to look at the reserves and see whether that's adequate in the event of anything catastrophic. Sitting in 90-degree temperatures in Brisbane in the month of March tells me we may be in for some surprises, and we'd better have money on hand to prepare for it. Technology is something the city hasn't visited. 2-3 years ago, we had consultants looking at it. That's going to cost a whopping amount of money, and we need to do that. We need to be up to date on our technology and have departments interfacing with each other instead of trying to Band-Aid it. So before we start spending on new shiny things, I would just like to just warn the public, there's a lot of things that all of our department heads have been going, hey, remember, I was asking for this how many years ago? We need to start looking at that first. So thank you very, very much. And I'm very happy to see more money coming in because we really need it. Thank you. Moving on. Overtime budget workshop, item I. Could we have a staff report, please?
Thank you. Madam Mayor, members of council, we're delighted tonight to bring the second in an occasional series of level-setting conversations related to aspects of how we do business. Tonight, we'd like to discuss the overtime budget. The overtime budget, we had a name issue there. It's been corrected.
Am I Cliff Lentz tonight?
Don't want to confuse the public. Overtime can be a fairly confusing exercise, and I think a lot of the reason for that is each department utilizes overtime in a very different way for different reasons. And I think one of the things that I certainly have done in the past is bucket all of those into one place and question the entirety of how we approach it. And what we wanted to do tonight was bring down some of those barriers and understanding. There are 4 departments that typically have overtime: police, fire, public works, and parks. And we're represented tonight by all 4 entities. Joel Abelson's online, the deputy chief. We have Chief Macias and Commander Mario with us from police. And we have Noreen from Parks and Maz from Public Works. Each of them will give a very brief couple-minute presentation in just a moment on each aspect of their overtime program. I think with that, why don't we turn it over? I'm going to use the order that's in the staff report, and if I could ask police to come up just to give a very brief presentation.
Yes.
Or from there, it's fine too.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. I'll be going over the overtime budget for the police department and what drives overtime within our department. The police department allocates $250,000 per fiscal year for overtime. The primary overtime driver is staffing, filling patrol shifts to maintain our minimum staffing levels and to ensure 24/7 patrol coverage so that our community continues to provide receive the safety security that they do. Our minimum staffing consists of 2 officers. When we are full staffed, we have 3 officers per shift. We haven't, as you can see on the graph there, we haven't been at full staff for several years, unfortunately. We've been down anywhere from 1 all the way up to 2 officers. And just to look at the graph, looking at the most current on to the right, which is fiscal year 24-25, as you can see there, we were down 1.5 officers. Our overtime was $253,000. What we budgeted, we went over by about $72,000, so our overtime there was $325,000. But our salary cost savings in those positions was $321,000. So we're really a kind of offset, the salary cost savings offset the budget, and you'll see that throughout the other several fiscal years as well. So a little bit about how hiring works. Currently, we're only down 1 police officer position on paper, but reality is we're really down 2. So kind of to give you a better understanding on our hiring process, when we hired, in this example, we have a entry-level position that we hired. When you talk about bringing them on board and then finding a police academy, which is 6 months. And then after the graduation of the police academy, you're talking about anywhere between 4 and 6 months of field training. If they're doing well and they clear the field training program, you're talking about 1 year before that person is actually on the street being able to fill as a solo beat officer. So even though on paper we're paying a salary for that officer, in that 1 year, that officer isn't able to fill any of the patrol shifts. So we're still having to fill those shifts as well. And a little bit about our recruitment strategy. We really don't do anything different than what most cities do. We post on CalOps, on our social media websites. We do community information boards. We attend job fairs. We attend the academies. We post at our universities and colleges that have criminal justice programs. So we're out there, we're being proactive, but the reality is that we are getting applicants, but they're just not hireable applicants. The job pool, the interest in being a police officer is not how it was years ago. When I applied 36 years ago, they cut off at 75 applicants, so there were 75 of us taking the test for one position. Right now, we're lucky we get maybe 6 or 7 applicants applying, and out of those, maybe one may be viable candidate and hireable, and sometimes out of that pool. The red flag is when you start seeing that these applicants have already applied to 25 other agencies, and so they haven't been picked up. So that's right now very challenging for us, is just being able to find hireable applicants. We're hoping now with the job market, you're starting to see, unfortunately, some layoffs in the private sector due to AI and just for other economic reasons. And we're hoping that maybe we'll have applicants that are thinking about a second career, and we'll start to see a better applicant pool. So even when we're fully staffed, overtime is still necessary to fill scheduled vacations, sick leave. We have personal leaves and other unexpected leaves, such as maybe an officer injury on duty or off duty. And I want to give you an example of an off-duty injury. We had an officer who, after working a graveyard shift, was heading home on his own personal motorcycle across the bay. And he was hit by a drunk driver at 7:45 in the morning. And he slid across 4 lanes of traffic. Fortunately and thankfully, he was not hit by any other vehicles. He sustained a fractured femur, broken wrist, broken ankle, and he was out of commission for about 10 months. Luckily, he was cleared and capable of coming back full duty, but that was 10 months of a position that, again, was on the books, but unfortunately, we had to fill. And again, thankfully, that officer is okay. He was young, he healed, recovered, and is back to full duty. So we just don't know what tomorrow brings when it's in regards to staffing. And then some of the other overtime drivers I just wanted to include are filling shifts. We're mandated by post to provide each officer with 24 hours of continuous professional training every 2 years. So that training generally is out of the area and has to be filled during officers' days off. That incurs overtime. Our court commitments for traffic and criminal court. Every time an officer stops somebody and gives a moving citation, 90% of that time, the officer is going to be subpoenaed to court and is going to have to go to traffic court and spend about 3 to 5 hours waiting for his name to be called to provide his testimony. So that's overtime. We have our criminal court proceedings. When we investigate cases and they go to trial, officers have to go and be there as witnesses and be there through the whole trial process. And then we also have major incidents. Unfortunately, like the 2 fatal collisions that we had, we have to order people in, call people in to work the streets and also to help with crime scene investigation so that those other 2 officers can conduct their investigation on major incidents. And then we have our joint county commitments. We have participation in our gang task force. We have our human trafficking operations. We have our DUI driving operations. We have our STEP, our Saturation Traffic Enforcement Program. We have special county events such as the gun buyback. We have the fireworks buyback during the summertime that we participate in. We have mutual aid from other cities that have major incidences that they require assistance on. And then we talk about our mobile field force. Those are activation for large-scale events such as a presidential visit, the World Cup that's coming up, the Super Bowl that just occurred. We had APEC in San Francisco that we also assisted and participated in. So on all of those types of large-scale events, we're committed to be able to send at least one body to assist should something occur. And then lastly, we have our community engagement events, our National Night Out, our Day in the Park, our school outreach programs. Officers go up and do science fair, which they just did last week. We have Reading Across America, and officers go up and read to the kids in the school. We have the Youth in Government business visit. We have just anything that comes up, Career Day at the schools that we participate in. And there's just other things that come up throughout the year that we participate in. And all those, in order for us to have committed personnel there, we open it up, we have to have it in overtime. And so lastly, the police department monitors overtime expenditure and remains committed to fiscal responsibility while maintaining essential service levels as the department balances community needs and county obligations. And that concludes my presentation. Questions from council?
Yes, Councilmember Kern, questions?
Thank you, Chief Macias, for the very thorough report, both written and verbal. Thank you. We're talking about finances here primarily, and I think like one of the unspoken insights and one of the unspoken concerns is just about officer burnout. And I'm just curious, do you have a program? Do you pay special attention to that? What do you do? How do you deal with like the burnout factor?
Well, we do have officer wellness program, and so we have the sergeants that are always watching out, checking on their officers. But there's opportunities where Mario and I, in order, so just for some of the minimal stuff, there's court proceedings, and so we allow officers to go if they're working on duty, instead of calling an officer in on their days off and taking away from their family time. Mario and I will cover the streets so that it alleviates somebody to have to come in on their day off just for a couple of hours. So, and we monitor. There's lots of times where there's some officers that really want to work, that are always willing to work any open shifts. And we always let them know, your quality of life, balancing your personal and your professional career, and making sure that you're spending time with your family. And so we monitor the overtime. We monitor who's taking the shifts to make sure that it's spread evenly amongst all of them, not just those that want the overtime.
Great, thank you. And thanks for all that you do.
Oh, thank you.
Councilmember Davis?
No questions. Great presentation.
Okay. Councilmember Lentz?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Chief Macias, for a great presentation and very thorough staff report. I just love the way that you and Mario and the rest of the force, have that community type of police engagement, and the citizens are extremely appreciative of that. The only question I have is, you had talked about trying to get new recruits and going through the academy process, and that takes a lot of time. Do we ever get any officers from another department? Another police department, from a different city?
We have had a few that probably many years ago, but now with the different tier in retirement systems, if they're a classic, under PERS, if they're in classic and they're to transfer over, I think they could still become classic. But there's certainly, you start, when you leave a bigger agency, there's certain things that you don't want to leave behind, your seniority, the pay. It's challenging to make that transition right now, from a bigger department or even a smaller department to another smaller department or a bigger department. We generally see, as a smaller department, we'll see individuals that might look at promotional opportunities. So if we open up a corporal position, as we added last year, council went ahead and approved that for us. There may be opportunities in officers that have been with another department for maybe 15 plus years, and there isn't an opportunity for promotion, that they might consider coming to another department, taking on a promotional opportunity. But it's very rare. We don't get too many laterals coming to smaller departments.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Councilmember O'Connell?
This isn't specific to your department, but I really appreciate the breakdown that we've been given on what the savings are by utilizing overtime. And I think that in the past, when we've seen on our budgets overtime, you question that. And showing it in this format really brings it to the forefront on where a department is saving from having another hire, even if they were able to have that other hire. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
for bringing that up. It was really clear.
Thank you, Chief, and I know this had a lot of work went into this. I do have two questions, if you'll humor me on this. Do we get reimbursements for countywide deployments?
Generally, we don't.
Okay. And so anyone from the county of San Mateo that comes to help us, likewise, it's just considered reciprocal?
Yes, that's correct. I mean,
Okay.
we work in such an amazing county, from small departments as ours to Broadmoor, which is a little smaller, to the bigger agencies like Redwood City and the city of San Mateo. So the wonderful relationship that we have amongst each other is anybody needs anything, we're there to support and do whatever, and offer whatever services we can. Because we know at one day it may end up coming to our benefit, right? And as a small department, it's much more of a benefit than it is for a bigger department, so, yes.
Yeah, it came to mind because I was picturing the accounting nightmare if that was going on when you talked about countywide and community commitments. And my second question, in looking at the chart, which is very, very helpful, and when I see the amount allocated in the budget for 3 different fiscal years being way under what it costs, could we in fact just raise those projections? Because it seems to be, it's not reflecting reality anymore.
Interesting you said that. Commander Garcia and I were kind of talking about, as salaries have increased, we've never really increased our overtime budget. It's been pretty constant, at least since I've been here for several years. So thank you for mentioning that. It might be
Yeah.
something that we consider moving forward.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Right, it's the same all the way across the board, 250.
It is, it is. Well, and the costs have gone up. All right, it looks like we have fire next.
You guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
Mayor, Council, first of all, I apologize. I'm not there in person. Not trying to make a practice of this. Hope to be there next time. So I'll try to be pretty brief with our overtime. The last, fiscal year 25 and 26 were somewhat unique for us. Some different factors happened with us. So our overtime, is mainly consist of maintaining our minimum staffing, which is 3 people on the engine. We staff at 4 to cover for, when people are off. So we typically don't see overtime a lot for our regular crews. So the other piece is always the OES component when we responded throughout the state. So I think it's the way I can explain it. If you look at fiscal year 25, so that number looks, 578,000 and change. That looks pretty large, but that year we got reimbursed 482,000 and change for that, to offset that deployment. So really our overtime number was less than $100,000 that the city actually had to cover. And the reason a lot of times that number is bigger because our reimbursement rate actually is a rolled up rate, and so it's actually more than we actually spend. Because we're reimbursed for fixed costs such as benefits and stuff that don't actually increase when we go on overtime. So we actually did well, and we had a big deployment that year, or several deployments, that resulted in that big number. This year and a little bit in last year, we also had an unusual amount of people on leave. We had somebody on maternity leave, and we also had a couple injuries, which put us down to 2 paramedics, and we need to cover every single day. So unfortunately, we had to, times we actually had to pay overtime to get a paramedic on duty. We've had challenges with hiring paramedics. We're working on it. We're down 1 right now, and we're hoping to get somebody here in the next 6 months or so. Anyway, that's kind of our where we're at now, and why we're a little bit. We're still well under budget this year. I don't anticipate, a lot of leave overtime this year. But we're not sure as far as our deploying status. But if we deploy again, we're going to get reimbursed. If we deploy out of the area. Besides that, the only overtime we really incur would be occasionally some public education events, some late night or off hour investigations on fires, which doesn't happen too frequently. And that's pretty much it. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, Councilmember Davis, questions?
No questions.
Councilmember Kern?
Thanks, Joel. No questions.
Councilmember O'Connell?
Just one question on your table, the annualized amount. What
Mhm.
is that amount, that 307,000?
I believe that's a projection that was provided to us. I'm not sure if somebody in
Yes.
staff answered
Yes,
that.
that's projected based off of the overtime that we've seen through March 13th already. So,
Okay, so instead of the 350 budgeted, you expect the actual to be 308?
and so, correct.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Councilmember Lance?
No questions, Joel, but thank you for the presentation and the explanation of the reimbursement and how that has an impact on what the actuals are. So appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And I have no questions, but I would also like to thank you for the explanation on fiscal year 25, so my eyes didn't pop out of my head on the difference. That was greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
No
Thank
problem.
you, and thank you
Yeah,
for
you're
joining us tonight.
Thank you.
All right. Public Works, Moz, you're next.
All right, now I figured out how the mic works. I think we can do this. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council, Oswald, Virginia Public Works. So the chart above you tonight shows our overtime breakdown for the Department of Public Works. I want to, there's many factors that go into overtime for Public Works. First and foremost, our infrastructure operates 24/7. So if there's an emergency, that's something that we're going to need to be responsive to. Unfortunately, emergencies aren't just tied to normal working business hours. So a lot of times we will get those calls after all hours, weekends, evenings. Same thing with, our infrastructure, our streets, our facilities. It's pretty much across the board. What we try to do is really understand where some of the opening and see if there's ways that we can address some of the issues in advance. I'm speaking to things like deferred maintenance, trying to get ahead of some of the critical infrastructure repairs and replacements before we get to a point where you start seeing some of those issues rise, where you get more frequency with respect to call outs. But for the most part, I think Brisbane's been pretty on top of deferred maintenance. So for the most part, I haven't seen too much of that, but that's something that we do, take a look at, try to manage it. A lot of the, on top of it being a 24/7 system, there's also emergency response as was mentioned. So if there's a major accident and there's a need for removal of major equipment, we can mobilize major equipment, tractors, bulldozers, whatnot, whatever we have to do to support. We'll do that. So we'll get called out. We won't be the first on scene, but a lot of times we will get called out to help out with certain areas and issues. Another big thing would be another major factor that historically will impact. It's hard to see a trend with respect to budgeted overtime. If you look at major weather impacts and issues, a lot of times you will see overtime increase for Public Works when we have major rain events, weather events, natural disasters. So obviously, when you look at fiscal years 22, 23, you'll see, generally you'll see a lot more because of the amount of rains that we had during those years. So you'll see kind of a change, a shift there, if you will. We also will look at some of the operational off work. So again, we try to schedule things. There could be opportunities where you could have some shifting of staffing, normal hours. I'm thinking more like weekend coverage for certain things at some of our facilities. But the challenges with the small staff that we have, if you do that, there will be times where you don't have a full a crew working a certain for overlapping with each other. So our staff, a lot of times they will work together when they're out the public's right of way, when they're at our parks. It's not a lot of times not a one person operation. You'll have a team of 2 people, and so that's another piece that we try to consider when we're staffing. But being as small as we are, there are challenges with with that, with opportunities to do that over time. Again, we really try to, it's a tool that we utilize. It's not, overtime, we want to make sure that we aren't overstaffed at the same time, right? So there's a balance there. Too much overtime will generally lead to concerns with respect to having not enough staff. But you also don't want to be too heavy on the staffing side, because then you're paying for redundancies for times that you may need it, but it may not be necessary long term. So, but yeah, overall, we have, I would say, for budgeted overtime, I think from what I've saw, 24-25 was the first time that Public Works really started budgeting overtime. Before that, unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of data to work with. But I think moving forward, we want to be realistic with the amount of overtime that we are programming. And we want to, again, use that as a tool to supplement the work that we do 24/7 without being too overly dependent on full-time staff. So that's kind of where we try to do it. And again, we're a small organization. We are very lean. We try to do that on purpose. It's hard to have a lot of redundancy. So again, we utilize it as a tool for that with that in mind. There are some contractors we could utilize, but a lot of times having somebody that comes in on call for some of those after-hour events, it's hard to have somebody that's a contractor come in. And a lot of times you will see the hourly rates for the contractors actually higher than what, even with the overtime factor for salaried employees. So, so there's a lot of different things that kind of go into it for Public Works. I think the nature of our operations, the fact that we are, we want to be responsive to issues and emergencies when they arise. If there's special events happening that we're supporting, street closures, things of that nature, we want to be supportive as well. So, again, we try to use it as a tool. Try not to rely on it too much, but it is something that Public Works as a whole will utilize when it makes sense. So with that, I wanted to keep my comments relatively brief, but happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Moss. Councilmember Lentz, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, thanks for the great presentation, Maz. And as you were going through your presentation, you were answering, potential questions that I might have. When I look at adding these two pillars, we're looking at about $110,000, and then I think, okay, well, if you had an employee who was a Swiss Army knife, I could do all the things, because there's this money isn't in just one thing of overtime. It's all across the spectrum that the Department of Public Works is implored to do. So to me, the overtime is a lot. It would be a lot less than if you had that really specialized employee. And then I'm really glad that you brought up the contractor versus the employee. Nothing against contractors, but I'd rather give our money to an employee who is dedicated to the city. Not to say that a contractor wouldn't do a great job on behalf of our town, but we know that the folks that are in Public Works, they really care about the work that they do, and this seems very balanced. And you're new on the job, and obviously, trying to budget is difficult. The $10,000 budgeted amount for the general fund probably not, spot on. You'll adjust, I'm sure, the next time. All right, thank you.
Sure. Councilmember O'Connell.
Again, thank you for the great report. And the 110,000 that you've average spending wouldn't cover an employee, so it makes sense to utilize the overtime in this position. And when we see the budgets come through next time, we'll have a more realistic view of what the expectations and anticipated needs are. Thank you.
Councilmember Kern.
Thanks for the fantastic report, as always, Maz. Just one question for you regarding benchmarking, and I don't know if that's something that we do, but I know that you bring experience from other municipalities. How does our overall, in terms of public works, how does our overall percentage of total payroll when it comes to overtime compare to other municipalities that you're familiar with?
Well, that's a great question. I think we're relatively well staffed. We don't have a lot of vacancies within public works, especially with respect to the overtime, the hourly employees. So that's a positive. I would say we're at approximately average or slightly below average of what I've seen in the other departments that I've worked in. And a lot of times it is related to vacancies where you just end up having to do more overtime. Or for other special needs. But yeah, for the most part, I would say we're at average or slightly below because I feel like we're relatively well staffed. Positions are, as far as hourly are filled, so that really helps.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Davis?
Hey, Maz. Is on-call pay captured in these numbers?
That's a good question. I don't think that they are, but Carolina, do you know?
Usually standby pay is not included unless it's an overtime standby.
Right, unless they get called in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you, Carolina. So yeah, the standby pay is separate. We planned for that. And then, yes, if there's a call out with respect to, because we'll have that standby person and when they actually get called out, then yes.
Then that it triggers the overtime.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, thanks. That's it.
Okay, Moss. I just have to ask. How much in overtime is attributed to our aging infrastructure? Roughly, top of your head.
Oh, that's a good question. For the last 5 months, I would say 90% of it.
Exactly.
But I think that's where it's really critical that we understand our critical infrastructure, especially the aging assets, and making sure that we program those into our capital program and take care of them sooner than later. Or is it going to eliminate overtime? No. Is it going to reduce it? Yes. And that's the goal. So I'd probably say 50-50
Okay.
if I had
I'm
to make
just
a guess.
planting seeds about that fund balance.
Sure.
And through the chair, Madam Mayor, in the coming months, meaning next couple, I think what we're anticipating is to reactivate the facilities subcommittee now that Moz has spent some time here in the community and has a much better understanding of how these pieces fit together. When Moz started, I think it's fair to say challenged him to really look closely at both the long-term maintenance, but also just like the basic stuff that we do on a regular basis. Do we have the right mix of folks? So Moz will be in a position to have I think a really robust conversation with the subcommittee. So we're looking forward to it.
And we'll have to muster up the facility subcommittee. Councilmember Davis and I take a look at the revised estimate for Mission Blue based on tonight's mishap.
Did Public Works get called out for that?
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. I did text our building and grounds team leader. So, yeah.
Oh,
Got
boy.
it.
All right. Thank you, Moz, very much. Appreciate it. All right, Noreen, Parks and Rec, you're so patient. Sorry.
I'm the caboose, but good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. You'll notice the common thread of those of us that are here speaking to overtime tonight is that none of us have a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 operation, right? We're all 7 days a week, nights, evenings, weekends, all the hours. And that's true for Parks and Recreation as well. So oftentimes the programs and services that we're providing necessitates overtime. We offer childcare on holidays to provide essential services to working families. We have the pool open 7 days a week. So those types of things can trigger overtime if full-time staff have to cover for part-time staff. If I have a lifeguard that calls out on a weekend, I have full-time staff that are potentially covering if they can't find other coverage. We provide staffing to support co-sponsored events all throughout the year. And so oftentimes that can trigger overtime in addition to our own community events like Day in the Park, concerts in the park. For those types of things that are annual or recurring, we really try to encourage our team members to flex their time as much as possible to minimize the amount of overtime that we're incurring, but sometimes it's just not possible. So we do the best we can to try to mitigate that, but it's inevitable to have a little bit. And so the chart that you'll see on the screen demonstrates a downward trend in use of overtime over the last few years, and we're proud of our efforts to try to minimize that. And that's also just attributed to stability amongst our team. So happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay. Councilmember Kern?
Great report. No questions here. Thanks.
Councilmember O'Connell?
I'm really heartened to see the downward trend in this because of any of the departments that work late hours. Park and Rec has the most discretion to know in advance when they're going to need those hours. And so I think it's really important to try to minimize it with staffing and flexibility. And it sounds like you're doing that well. So thank you for the report.
Councilmember Davis?
No questions.
Councilmember Lentz?
I just want to say thank you, Noreen, for the report. And, thanks to you and your staff for being mindful of the overtime and implementing, that awareness. And as Councilmember O'Connell said, forecasting appropriately and getting folks in there that, will cover those roles so we don't have to do the overtime. So appreciate the work. Thanks.
I would just add, Noreen, that it shows the overtime going down, shows you've got a really good utilization of part-time and full-time staff. So my compliments to you, considering the number of hours you also have to fill. All right. Do we have any public comment? City Clerk?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right. Council discussion. I'm not sure how much, this isn't really an action item. This is to give staff some direction. So we'll just go through same round again. Councilmember Kern, discussion?
I have no further points to add.
Okay. O'Connell?
No comments.
Councilmember Davis?
Nope.
Councilmember Lentz?
This was really helpful. I'm glad that this was brought to the council level and that it was agendized. So thank you for doing that. And I think we all learned, something tonight because of it.
I will add one comment. It was much easier having this conversation and discussion when it wasn't involved in budgeting.
Yes.
Where we weren't trying to look at the nickels and dimes and see through a process. And so this, I think, was really a good exercise to bring it forward beforehand so that we understand where those numbers are going to come from when we see an actual budget. So,
Agreed.
Thank you.
Through the chair, Councilmember O'Connell, thank you. That was much of our intention tonight, was to alleviate some of the stress that comes from the budgetary process and provide, again, with that level playing field information for all the council members. Just as a reflection, my desire to have this conversation in part started with Parks and Rec, because I think there's sometimes a misunderstanding of how they utilize overtime. So from there, we realized, okay, there's a great opportunity here to have that broader discussion. So really appreciate the feedback tonight. Thank you. It's received as it was hopefully intended.
I would echo what my colleagues have said, and this is something as a tool we haven't had before. I'm sure it might have been very painful for all of you in your departments to go through this exercise, but it's also extremely helpful to kind of dissuade assumptions we might have and have a good grasp when we go into the budget sessions on what we're dealing with. And it's good information also for the public, because I think they've always had questions they convey to us, and now it's public. So thank you very, very much for this. Appreciate it. And I hope it's going to continue in the future. It'll probably be easier in the future. So moving right along. Staff reports, city managers report, city updates. Your report, please.
Thank you. I have a couple, I have one update, one suggestion actually for a future agenda item if you'd like me to do that now, or I could do it during the council's portion of it, and then just some updates on the calendar. First of all, I wanted to provide an update on our representation at Bosqua. As you know, Randy Bro has served ably for many years as our Bosqua rep. There are very specific rules around who can serve on Bosqua. And in conversations with Moz and Randy's agreed to continue to serve in that capacity for at least another year. That's his term. And we'll have regular conversations with him about expectations moving forward. So I wanted to let you know about that. Secondly, you may have been reading the news in the last day or two related to Cesar Chavez. And communities across California are reevaluating their relationship to the holiday and things that are named after him. So I wanted to acknowledge that we're obviously tracking that as well. We're seeing what other communities are doing, and if the council, with the holidays coming up in a couple weeks, so there's not much to do about that from a nomenclature standpoint. But if the council would like to entertain us bringing forward a resolution that would change the name of that holiday, we can do that at the next meeting if that's a preference. So I can work with the mayor and the mayor pro tem on that. But I just wanted to get a flavor if there's no rush to do this, but certainly we're going to start having community members come out and share something. Tom's jumping in, so
What about the idea committee?
certainly take it to idea committee.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah.
If I may add, I heard today that from the state, they're talking about calling it something recognizing
working.
farm workers.
Yeah.
The
So-
state assembly has changed it to Farm Worker Day.
Right,
And is-
there we go. Yeah,
So-
I think we could dovetail off whatever the state declares it.
I think
Just
that's
for
appropriate.
uniformity.
I agree.
But we'll take it to idea committee. Thank you for the suggestion there. So let me just share a few elements of the upcoming calendar for you. There's just a few events before our next council meeting. Boogie Down Brisbane is this Saturday, 12 to 4 at 11 Old County. Lyrical Opposition, Kapwa Cultural Center, and Rock the School Bells for Boogie Down Brisbane will be in the community park. Performances, food, beverages, vendors. So we hope you can attend. I think it's worth reminding folks that this is also, this Saturday from 10 to 1 is the council's priority study session at the Doubletree. We're really appreciative of the Doubletree for hosting us. Teen Nights, March 25th, 5:30 to 8. This is an event that is ongoing, and that's at the, where are we doing this one? The Sunrise Room, thank you. Will be closed for the aforementioned holiday on March 31st. And that concludes my review of the calendar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have a request from any council members for items to be put on future agendas? Councilmember O'Connell?
No.
Councilmember Lentz?
Yeah.
Councilmember Davis?
I just have a question about, I brought up previously about looking at our dumping fees. So when can we expect, is that going to come up with all of our other fees that we're going to be looking at, or when are we talking
I
about?
think that'd be a fine. I don't think that was looked at by our subcommittee that Mayor Mackin and I have looked at, where we were looking at any punitive fines. We were looking at service fees and costs. So I don't think that's included in what's going to be coming to us, but that might be something that might need to be voted on depending on how it's looked at by legal.
Does Tom want to weigh in?
I did not understand the context, Madam Councilmember.
So I think our fines for dumping are rather low.
Okay.
We have a lot of dumping activity going on. So a member of the public in public comment suggested that the council review our fines for dumping and increase them. So I'm just following up on, we had agreed to look at that. And so does it need to go to the voters if we want to implement a higher fine?
It's in ordinance, so I'm not, I'll have to look at the ordinance, but will it require at a minimum going through a full amendment process in a public forum and hearing? Yes. I don't know that it would have to go to the voters directly, but I'd have to look.
Through the chair, I'll work with the mayor and the mayor pro tem on bringing that item forward future meeting.
Cool. Sounds good. Councilmember Kern?
I do not have anything. Thank you.
Okay, and I don't have anything either. So we move on to countywide assignments and subcommittee reports. Anyone have a report would like to start?
I do not.
No, all my meetings have been with all you guys.
Okay. Kern? Davis? Okay, I have one. You're going to like this. Okay, this was a CCAG meeting. Would like you to know the Bay Area Air District levies a fee on motor vehicles, and those funds are used for projects that reduce air pollution from vehicles. CCAG has been designated long-term as the agency that administers 40% of those funds generated within our county, because it's Bay Area, but within our county. So for fiscal year 26-27, CCAG has roughly $3 million available. And this year, the Air District provided additional funding specifically for bikeways and bike parking. 1.7 million of the 3 million was earmarked for those type of projects. And you heard this earlier, funds have also been provided to commute.org as part of countywide voluntary trip reduction program. That's been going on for several years. That's where the funds come from. And this year will be $600,000 with $60,000 for the BART shuttle program. Commute.org anticipates additional contributions from private employers to fully fund the shuttle program. I hope that answered your question earlier. You're going to have to find employers to put money in. Is what I just said. No. Let me read it again. Commute.org anticipates additional contributions from private employers to fully fund the shuttle program, the BART shuttle program.
So you're on your own, folks.
Thank you. On the legislative front, I'm sure you recall Senator Scott Wiener's bill SB 79. It's the bill that authorized high residential densities within half-mile of qualifying transit stations be subject to specific development standards. On January 6th, CCAG submitted a comment letter to Senator Wiener outlining concerns with the bill, asking for more clarity that SB 79 does not preclude cities from requiring ground floor retail in its high-density, mixed-use developments. That's a lot to take in, so I'm going to try to explain it. Several cities are very concerned that they're getting multiple residential projects without ground floor retail that could change the character of their downtown business districts. San Carlos was one of them. If you've been on El Camino in San Carlos, you see all the high-rise housing, and they're saying we're concerned because we have more projects on main streets where there's a business district, and now with SB 79 interpretations, which are already happening, some of those will not have ground floor retail, and they're trying to hang on to their commercial base. So Scott Wiener has promised amendments to SB 79, and in January, he introduced SB 908, what he calls a cleanup bill for SB 79. The bill is now pending, and we were told at CCAG that apparently HCD is preparing guidelines for SB 79, and that MTC is producing maps. Now, don't ask me what that means. That's all we were told. But since SB 9 goes into effect July 1st this year, cities, we were told also, have no time to put together a specific plan to do zoning amendments. With this in mind, CCAG, in their letter to Senator Weiner, asked the senator to extend the implementation deadline, meaning July 1st, in order to be in alignment instead with the initiation of the next RENA cycle, which is a very different concept. So stay tuned. That's what we know, but that's what's going on behind the scenes. And our city attorney may have something to add to that since he's in the hot seat in Sacramento.
So 3 quick points. What's being requested, although we're focusing on the one that's most relevant to the city, there have been a number of requests along those lines to Senator Weiner, but also to other legislators, including the 2 housing committees. And Senator Weiner no longer chairs the Senate Housing Committee, to make these changes. So there is a lot of attention, and it would require, second point, it would require a change in law. Although 79 is not fully implemented yet, it is partially implemented or about to be. But no, it's partially implemented. And you can't just, you can't use a letter or an author's letter after the fact to say, what I meant by this law was this. So you have to go in and clarify it using a formal process if you want that meaning to be enforceable by the courts or otherwise. And then the third point is that it is being challenged in court still. I have not read the ruling, but I did see a note earlier this week that one of the cities in a challenge to SB 79 did get a breather, if you will, against enforcement, but I don't have the facts. I only saw like a 2-sentence summary of it. So I have it on my list to read this weekend. If it was a significant win, it would have made a lot more, it would have gotten a lot more attention than a couple of sentences in a law summary of last week's decisions. So I don't think it was momentous, but nonetheless, a court did hear something and say that is a problem under SB 79. I'll try to find out exactly what that is and see if it's published and share it with the council and the city.
Thank you, Tom, for that update.
Do you mind if I say something?
Sure, go
Your
ahead.
report provoked a thought, and if this is going backwards too much, then I can bring this up at the next meeting. But we had discussed, and I don't know if it was at a subcommittee level or at a council level, exploring, because Cliff and I met with John Ford, and we talked about.
Could you explain who John Ford is?
Oh, the executive director of commute.org. And he explained that the cities that are having the least of funding problems are the ones that mandate participation from their businesses. So instead of commute.org going out and saying, would you like to give us money? And people saying no, cities are passing an ordinance of, or, you know, however they're doing it, whether they're whether it's part of their business license fee or what have you, but that's the easiest way to fund this so that the city is not backfilling in the excess. And so I think it would be prudent for us to explore something of that nature. And so I don't know if the council wants to discuss that further at a future meeting.
Are we not still reviewing business taxes? So that could be part of that. Does that make sense? Before that comes to the council? Would that satisfy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, before you continue, you were speaking about your meeting with CCAG. I don't know if you'd heard the news, but Sean is leaving CCAG. He's going to be the new city manager of Pacifica.
Yes.
Carpinteria?
That was
That's official.
tonight.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're voting on it on Monday.
Yeah, it was
but he-
official if
Yep.
it went through their council tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, do we have city clerk written communications?
Yes, written communication was received from Denise Gregory on the 11th regarding toxic neighbor laundry room. Denise Gregory on the 11th, video of dryer exhaust. Bridge Housing sent a letter to the Brisbane Housing Authority. And Mark Herbert on March 5th sent an email about the community park cameras.
Thank you very much. Do we have any members of the public wishing to make public comment? This is oral communications number 2. Any item that was not on the agenda?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. That being said, thank you for joining us, whether it was in person or online, and this meeting is adjourned at 8:47 PM.
All right. Okay. Good meeting.